like to welcome you to this edition of Plymouth Profiles. Plymouth Profiles is an opportunity to interview people from the greater Plymouth community. And today we're delighted we have many guests. We're going to begin with one guest who is returning that recently was on our show, and that is Matthew Muratore. He was formerly, last time on the show, a candidate for state representative, and now he is state representative-elect. I'd like to welcome Matt. Matt, welcome back.
Steve, thanks for having me back. Appreciate that.
So Matt, first of all, for people that may not know you, give us a little bit of your background.
Well, again, my name is Matt Muratore. I was born in Caribou, Maine, raised in the South Shore. Went to college at Northeastern University, got my degree in business administration management. Currently a nursing home administrator, have been since 1991. I'm the administrator of Plymouth Rehabilitation and Healthcare Center in Plymouth on South Street. I'm also a co-owner of a couple of daycare centers called Crayon College. And I'm a member of some community organizations such as the Rotary, as you and I belong to, the BNI Pine Hills, the area Chamber of Commerce.
So Matt, we're taping this in the middle of November 2014. The last time we were here was prior to the election that was held early in November, and I was there on election night watching the returns with you, and noticed that you won by more than just a few votes. So congratulations for that. Now again, for people who are watching, what is the district that you cover?
So the district that the First Plymouth District encompasses precincts 2 through 8, and then 10, 12, 14, and 15. And
that is the district that was formerly held by Vinnie DiMacedo, who is now Senator-elect.
Correct, exactly.
And so tell us, what did you do after you were elected?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for being there that night and introducing me. It was a great honor for me to have you do that. We really celebrated that night, and like I tell a lot of people, it was really a culmination of hard work, putting a plan together, and working hard, and to have it come to fruition was really great. And so after the celebrations, it would then turn quickly to start getting back to get to work. 2 days later, I had a luncheon with the minority leader in the House on Thursday of that week, just to go through some preliminary things that are going to be happening, ask questions, etc. Now I'm in the process of actually hiring a legislative aide. And I'm actually going to do a little bit different than Vinnie did it. I'm going to actually have somebody from Plymouth actually be part of the legislative aide, who will be working with me over the next couple of years. And then in mid-December, we're actually going to have an orientation. UMass Amherst actually puts on a 3-day orientation for newly elected officials. So it'll be December 10th through the 12th. So I'm looking forward to that. And then the swearing-in ceremony will be the morning of January 7th at the State House. So
what's a legislative aide mean?
Legislative aid is one of I'll be one of 160, and basically they put together the laws of the Commonwealth, and they work on budget issues. It's a $36 billion budget that they work on. There are a number of committees that are put together on the House side, and I'll be looking to get appointed to a couple of those committees that will hopefully be helpful to Plymouth. One of the committees I've already asked to be on is tourism. I think over the next 5 years, tourism is huge in this area because of the 2020 celebration, not just for Plymouth and not just for the Commonwealth, but for the entire United States and the world. So I really would like to get involved in that committee.
And what about constituent service? Does the legislative aid help with that?
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of the work is done in the district. I did have found out that as in this session that's coming up, the session's usually on Wednesday. So we'll be in session on Wednesday, usually in the late mornings, early afternoons. And but the majority of the work, from what I understand, is done in the district, working with the people of Plymouth. And we'll be doing a lot of that, as pretty much as I did as selectman.
Speaking of that, you are a selectman. What's going to happen?
Well, last night I had submitted my letter of resignation right after the election, and last night the selectmen voted to accept my letter of resignation. It's because of the bylaw in Plymouth that does not allow you to hold a state office and a local office. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed. I really love being a selectman. I really have enjoyed it. It's bittersweet that I'm going to be leaving it, so my effective date of resignation will be at 11:59 p.m. on January 6th. So we will be in session on January 6th at the Board of Selectmen, and then the next morning I'll be sworn in as state rep. So I'm staying as long as I possibly can.
And what is the Board of Selectmen planning to do regarding your position?
Well, there was no action taken at last night's meeting, and I don't believe the chairman is actually going to take any action on it. I think the feeling is that it's very costly to have a special election in end of January, and I think the cost is about $36,000. But any resident out there can petition it with 200 votes. So the knowledge of that is out there as well. We'll just have to wait and see what happens.
200 signatures on the petition.
That's correct. And by the way, if that doesn't happen, then in the May election, what will happen, it'll be an election for the 3-year term, and there'll be a separate election for the 1-year term.
And the Board of Selectmen is a multi-member body with 5 selectmen. So what does that do to the quantum of vote on certain items?
You know, and that's the other side of the argument, too. There'll be 4 selectmen that will be left.
And that's a quorum.
That's a quorum, yeah, that's a quorum, but there could be a lot of tie votes. We're coming in, as you know, to the town meeting in April, and town articles will be coming out the 1st of January and February. They'll need to be voted on. It's budget season as well, so there's a lot of things that will need to be voted on over the next several months. So, hopefully you won't see a lot of tie votes, but it could happen.
And it also strikes me that it affects individuals, residents, and businesses. You know, I've, as you know, come before the Board of Selectmen on a number of occasions with liquor license applications. In fact, I expect to be coming before the Board of Selectmen probably after January 6th. And it strikes me that my client, a business, could be affected by the lack of a 5th selectman.
Could be. Could be.
So
there's going to be a lot of debate, I think, over the next couple of weeks on this.
Are there any items that require more than a majority, such as a supermajority?
The one thing that comes to mind is if we were to hire a town manager or the town manager's contract that we just did, you need to have 4 votes.
Okay.
But not something that says you have to have a 5 vote. 4 is usually the highest.
And that always could happen. We've had managers in the past that have not fulfilled their term, and things can happen to people. So that would be one case in which 4 votes. But there is a quorum, and most of the other votes are majority votes.
Correct.
What about in terms of additional responsibilities of selectmen? Do each of you accept membership to other committees?
Yeah, I'm the liaison to the Council on Aging, the liaison to the Building Committee, a couple other committees out there. So I'm not sure how Chairman Tavares will actually handle that in the interim, but my guess is he'll probably split that up with some other people to kind of fill in the meantime.
So when we last spoke, we talked about some of your plans, hopes and dreams, if you will, as a state representative. Now that you've been elected, have any of those changed?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, the meeting I was talking about with the minority leader a couple days after the election, we talked about that. What were some of the things that were important to me on the campaign trail, and what can the party do? The legislature do, along with the Governor-elect Baker do to help with that. And one of the biggest things we talked about was the mental illness that I've been talking about for a while. And there is some movement on the Hill now about that. And that's another committee I'd like to get involved with. I think as Representative Randy Hunt is on that mental illness committee as well. But there's some movement that's going on, which I was encouraged to hear, and I'd like to be involved with that to move that forward, to see if we can get more treatment centers, more psychiatrists in the state, and what we can do about moving some of the healthcare dollars over to mental health and really help the mental health issue, which I think can save dollars in the healthcare overall if we can really start treating mental health and start talking about that.
It's such an issue that
affects a lot of people.
It affects so many people. I got a call Monday morning at my office from a mother in Vermont whose son lives in Plymouth and was hospitalized over the weekend for mental health issues. And she was asking about what's available for her adult son. And so much is dependent on what we're able to offer through the funding at the state, through the Department of Mental Health. So
yeah, it's what's available, which is not a lot available. It's also a health insurance, what health insurance providers will provide and pay for. And that needs to be looked at as well.
And we've talked in other forums about the problems with drugs and alcohol. In the Plymouth District Court now has a drug court, and yet we've been told in so many cases that many of the people have substance abuse issues also have mental health issues.
Exactly. There's a connection between there. There's a very small amount of people who get addicted to drugs because they want to. The larger percentage of people that do drugs or get addicted to drugs is there's some underlying depression or some sort of mental health issue that's there. And we need to start getting to that root cause of that so that can help the drug issue as well.
Where will your legislative assistant be?
We haven't, well, first got to hire the person, so we're still interviewing. But we're not sure how we're going to do that. You get limited funds to actually have an office. There's not a lot of funds for that, so I'm not sure we're going to have an office. But we may try to see if we can work out of the library or work out of town hall, or to have office hours and things like that. So we'll be working that out over the next few weeks.
Good.
And of course, I'm available by cell phone in my office and all that. So.
Matt, just before you leave, we're going to continue this show with people who have been recently appointed by me to the Charter Review Committee. You've been a selectman for a while. You were on the Advisory and Finance Committee. Any comments about Charter Review or Charter Review Committee?
Yeah, I was talking to some of the folks beforehand. It's such a big commitment for them, but it's such an important committee for this town. I know you appoint it every 5 years, but there's a lot of things that need to be decided, and it's good that we have that charter review every 5 years to see what needs to happen. There's been a number of discussions over the last 4.5 years that I've been selectman. When I first became selectman, our census for the town was a little under 58,000. It's projected to go to 72,000 by 2020. So there's been a lot of discussion over the last 4.5 years in the public about, should we be looking to change the form of government? By 2030, the projection is going to be over 80,000 people. So, I'm not saying a mayor form of government is the right thing to do. I know 5 years ago, town meeting, didn't approve that. But is there something in between that could be looked at and maybe adjusted? But they've got some big decisions ahead of them. But I like the makeup of the committee very much. So I went to the first meeting, and very diverse. A lot of people that not really have been involved with politics before in Plymouth, which is nice. And I think having some former people that have been on the charter review helping them, and I know former Selectman Harness and I had a discussion about this a few weeks ago, that he'd be willing to, he was chair the last five years ago, he'd be willing to help out and give them what he's had done in the past, so they don't have to start from scratch on a lot of things. So it's a lot of community support for that, and I think it's important, and I'm looking forward to what they come up with.
Good. Any last words for the voters of Plymouth who elected you?
I just want to thank all the voters for electing me. It's a true honor. It's a humbling experience, and I'm going to do what I did as selectman and just always do the right thing for the people of Plymouth. It may not be the politically correct thing to do sometimes, but I'm going to work with people and hopefully get things done for Plymouth. And it's a great community, and if we can make it even greater, that's what I'm going to do.
Congratulations.
Thanks for everything you've done.
Matthew Muratore.
Thank you.
State Representative-elect for the town of Plymouth. And at this time, we ask that you stay tuned. We have a brief public service announcement and return with 3 members from the Plymouth Charter Review Committee. Thank you.
The Plymouth Center for the Arts, located in the historic Russell Library and Linden's Building, was transformed by volunteers into handsome galleries where art is enjoyed by visitors throughout the year. The Guild's annual juried art show, the New England Watercolor Society's exhibit, and the Fine Art of Photography show are all annual events. In addition to the art on the walls, our artists share poetry readings, jazz concerts, as well as classes in painting, sculpture, pottery, and more. Please visit our website for more information and join us as we share this treasure with our community.
Wreaths Across America honors the men and women in our armed services who have given their lives by coordinating wreath-laying ceremonies each December at Arlington Cemetery and veteran cemeteries across our country. Our goal is to spread the message about the importance of remembering our fallen heroes, honoring those who serve, and teaching our children about the sacrifices made by veterans and their families to preserve our freedoms. This year, Wreaths Across America will be on December 14th. For more information about the local wreath ceremony in Bourne, please visit our website.
Welcome back to this edition of Plymouth Profiles, which is an opportunity to meet with people from the greater Plymouth community. As town moderator, I am charged with the responsibility of appointing a charter review committee at least once every 5 years. And recently, due to that charter provision, I did appoint a charter review committee that began in November of 2014, which is when we're taping this particular show. and it's made up of 9 members. 3 of them are with us today, and I'd like to introduce them to all of you, and we'll hear a little bit about them. I'd like to start with Anita Rusciato. Anita, welcome.
Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Anita, tell the people who are watching this a little bit about yourself.
My name is Anita Rusciato. I live on Betancourt Road in Precinct 10. I have raised 8 children in Plymouth. Happy, they're all doing very well. And I have a few of them still live here in Plymouth. My son is the theater director at the new theater that we have here in Plymouth. And I got my BA degree in business administration and education, and got my master's degree in education. I'm a town meeting member, and I love Plymouth.
Great. Anita, how long have you been a resident here?
I built my house in 1975.
So you've been here quite a while.
Yes, I have been.
And you also have worked with the town clerk or with elections?
Yes, that was probably one of my best jobs. I love that so much. And what I did was represent the Democratic Party at the town hall, and I was taught how to verify people's status as being town members or being elected, being registered to vote, and actually learned how, and I didn't know how to use a computer, so it was really very interesting. And now, to learn how everything was on the computers and how efficient it was, really, really efficient, and to check them, and then really efficient when to watch how the boxes came in with the ballots, and I helped Larry Pizer, unload that, and it was a really wonderful experience. It really was.
Craig Alexander, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Craig, tell the people who are watching a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. My name is Craig Sander. I live at 30 Middle Street here in Plymouth. I live with my wife and my grandmother. We've been here for 2 years. My grandmother's been here for 92. I originally am from the seacoast of New Hampshire, Exeter, New Hampshire, and went to school for communications and marketing, and worked at the New Hampshire Bar Association as assistant communications director before coming down to Plymouth to take a job as IT manager for a local nonprofit. I'm very excited to be involved in this committee. I was talking to the other members of the committee earlier about how amazing it is, the level of access we as citizens of the town have in this government. I mean, the place we were living before in Manchester, New Hampshire, is a city mayor, city council type of government. And I always had the sense that things were happening that I had no say in. And coming here, it's a polar opposite. I'm now on the Charter Review Committee, where we can make recommendations to directly affect the structure of the town. That's, pretty amazing to me. But I'm very excited.
And Craig, so you say you've been here 2 years, so it sounds like you came here because of your grandmother?
I did, yes.
But there must be more than a pull of just a family member.
We're Mayflower descendants. I grew up coming down to Plymouth every summer. My family and my grandparents would spend summers out at this Miles Standish State Forest at Blueberry Hill Campground. I love the town. It's always held a special place to me, and when we had the opportunity to come down, it was a no-brainer. I'm from the seacoast originally, and to come back to that kind of environment in a place that I care about is something.
Good. Craig, thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Grandy, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much
So,
for having me here today.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Tim Grandy. I live in South Plymouth, Bournehurst Drive. Married. I have 2 children. My daughter has graduated high school, as has my son. He is a junior at the University of Oregon. And my daughter is a manager at Mary Lou's. Lived in Plymouth for the last 22 to 23 years, somewhere around that time frame. And my involvement in the town is probably 15 years of service, either as a town meeting member for many years, alternate to the planning board, numerous different committees, I also currently serve as the vice chairman of the planning board. So I do have a little bit of experience with the process. As far as my reasoning for getting involved here and volunteering to serve is I always volunteer to serve. And my wife has a saying when I go out to meetings, and I spend many of them out during the weeks and years in the past history, that I'm going to see my girlfriend again. And I say, yep, I'm going to see my girlfriend, which is the town of Plymouth. So what I like to do is help the residents. We need to do what's best for the community as a whole, not just special interest as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I get involved with government.
And Tim, even though you are the vice chair of the planning board and a former town meeting member, why add the charter review committee to your list of responsibilities?
Well, this is a charter that governs everybody. The Board of Selectmen, town manager, the residents of the town. It's a very important document. And it needs to be vetted, and there are some corrections that can be made to the current charter through discussions that I've heard. If you watched earlier on the show, you heard Representative state that he thought maybe the form of government needs to be changed through discussions he was hearing across the entire town. I'm hearing some of the same discussions and debates. There are good things to town meeting. There are good things to a mayoral form of government. Maybe there's something in between that will work for the community, or town meeting may stay exactly as it is currently through the process of vetting it through the Charter Review Committee. And I'm looking forward to the well-diverse group that we have in being involved in that process.
And Tim, how long have you been on the planning board?
4.5 years.
So you bring to the charter review committee really your planning board experience as well as your town meeting experience.
Yes, sir.
And Craig,
Yes.
you're been here 2 years, so you probably have a pretty open mind.
I'm relatively open. I do have a grandmother who's been here some time, so I've heard of all the issues that happened in my absence. I'm on the board of trustees for the Antiquarian Society, and I also served for a year on the Center Steering Committee. So I've definitely been exposed to some of the issues in town. I've heard the pros and cons of changing the form of government. I've heard pros and cons about business development, residential development. I'm familiar with the issues, but I am coming to it with I hope, a fresh perspective. I know that I have yet to encounter any other residents my age involved in government, which is a shame, but
He's calling us old.
but hopefully we'll see experience.
I won't ask you how old you are, but you can always volunteer that.
I'm 32, but I think it's important that we all get involved. We have this great opportunity to be involved, and
And I was going to ask you, why are you doing the charter review committee? I think you're kind of saying that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the opportunity to have a real voice in your government is, at the risk of sounding cheesy, it's amazing. It's the true expression of freedom that this government provides us. For me to be a part of that is, it's an honor.
Anita, you're already a town meeting member. Why would you want to be in the charter review committee?
I saw it as an opportunity for me to really learn and to really give my opinion the way in which the town is run. I'm on a number of state committees, and I'm on the COA board. And,
Which is the Council on Aging.
Yes, I'm sorry, the Council on Aging Board. And it's just to be on the Charter Review Committee, to me, I consider it an honor. And then when I went to the first meeting last week and saw the other members on the committee, I was so excited because it's really a terrific group that's been put together, and I felt very honored. I really did. And I'm looking forward to working with the group. It's just great.
So Anita, you just talked a little bit about the meeting that was held last week, which would be early in November. Tell us a little bit about what you remember from that meeting. What did you take away from that? How did it strike you?
One of the things that I took away from the meeting that I thought was really a benefit to the group right from the beginning is the fact that there was other charter committee members who have had this position in the past, and they were willing to come before us and to share with us the things that they felt could have been done different, and or the things that they would, suggest that we consider. And I thought that was just really super. The other thing that I left with was the fact that right off the bat we're going to have we're going to have town council come before us and explain to us, those things that we, the best way in which we can legally handle being on this committee. And I just thought that it was our first meeting, again, I thought was really good.
Good.
I
Craig,
really did.
what would you add to that? What did you recall from that meeting that you took away as a first-time member?
Yeah, coming into it, I sort of had the expectation that we were setting out to make the changes that we believed were important to the charter. And after listening to the town manager talk about making her staff available, and after speaking with, learning that we were going to have the town council come in, it was apparent to me that it's more of a listening job. And it's exciting to know that you're not necessarily trying to make your own change to the town, but that your goal is to be the most informed person related to the charter through talking with town staff, with community members, with precinct chairs. The job is really about listening and becoming informed about what the charter is and how changes to the charter will affect the rest of the town according to what the community decides they want.
Jim, you're at that meeting. What are your thoughts?
Well, when I first got to the meeting, I was very happy to see that there was new blood, so to speak. As far as I've been on a lot of committees, usually sometimes you see the same faces all the time. That's why I was actually surprised you even appointed me to the committee.
Yes.
I
Well, it was purposeful in that I wanted a lot of new blood because I wanted that energy. I didn't want people kind of feel a little tired, but we wanted some people who are tried and true and who can bring some experience to the committee as well.
Right,
so
right.
you all complement each other.
That's fantastic because I try to keep an open mind. I went into that meeting with an open mind, and I plan on going through the process and vetting every single item through that charter and listening to everybody. If you go in there with one set idea and one set direction and you have a thick head, well, that you really shouldn't be sitting on that particular committee, any committee as far as I'm concerned. So I look forward to going through that process. And also, I heard from Mr. Muratore, Representative Muratore, and he talked to me earlier about Sergio Hines, who was a former selectman, who was chair of the last committee.
That's what he said, yeah.
That's what Matt had said, and he has all the information from the last committee. Mrs. Karen Bukes also was on a charter review committee, which I intend on sitting down with her and going through that process and seeing what her ideas are and how they approached it, things that they did in the past, things that they might want to change, such as you suggested. And also, Mr. Garrett, I think, has some ideas as a former planning board chairman. And I intend on talking to all these people and listening to the process. And hopefully we can look at this and make some changes that will help the community. And that's the reason why I wanted to be involved. So,
Yeah. Anita, you've scheduled some more meetings. Do you recall when they are?
December the 3rd and December the 10th. Those are the only two we've scheduled so far.
And those are on Wednesday evenings.
Yes,
And they'll be at Town Hall in the Mayflower Room.
in the Mayflower Room, that's
And
correct.
they will be cablecast live on PEC TV.
Yes.
And what does the committee plan to do at those meetings? Do you know who's going to be coming?
I believe the first meeting we're going to have town council. That's on the agenda.
Okay.
As far as I know, that's the only thing that's
Okay.
been put on the agenda.
Okay.
But I believe we're trying to also get a former charter committee person to speak to us.
Okay. Craig, go ahead.
Yeah, the majority of the first two meetings, my understanding anyway, is that we're going to be picking out a list of members who are going to come and speak about how the charter affects their jobs, how we can ask questions to them about purposes of certain chapters in the charter. And I suspect that the first 2 meetings are going to be a lot of just building lists of people that we need to speak with and inviting them into the meetings to, build questions.
And do you have, for the people watching, do you have any sense as to how long the committee might be in operation?
I don't yet. My understanding is that we are definitely operating until Springtown meeting. Although if we get a lot of turnout at the meetings and a lot of public opinion that needs to be heard, that may go on and continue until October for the fall town meeting.
And that's because the town charter does require that you report to the town meeting with some type of report or recommendations. Tim, anything else you can recall from that meeting or going forward in the process?
I did notice that quite a few of the new members did bring up the conflict of interest scenario, so it's going to be very informative, I think, to look and delve into that a little bit and get more informed as a committee member to see if that could even be done, if it's conceivable at all to actually put any teeth into it or look at maybe different cities and communities have different ways that they do it and at least vet it and look at it.
So the charter says that the Charter Review Committee could make recommendations on any amendments, and an amendment could be a change in a word, in a sentence, in a paragraph, in a provision. It could be even to change the whole charter. So, Tim, you mentioned that you've talked to some people. Are there any other areas that people have mentioned to you in addition to the conflict of interest, which I know the Committee of Precinct Chairs has also taken up that issue?
It was funny, I just got a call about 2 days ago. I was talking to somebody and they said they reviewed the charter online, and why is the sections that are not pertinent still there and have X's through them when you look at it online? Can't we just eliminate that completely? Why would you have that? And that's just one small issue that certainly can be looked at and delved into. The other thing that I did receive...
The town clerk was at the first meeting, and I think he probably said he hopes to be invited back.
Right, exactly. So we'll be inviting the town clerk back, and I don't know about giving him that 3-time raise he was talking about on the microphone. I don't know about that, right?
Right.
Such as we just had a representative, I got a call on that, elected, and they're at 4 members as of January 6th, I think.
Right.
And how that affects, and you had discussed it a little bit earlier, how you could have a 2-to-2 vote, affect businesses, affect the community. So I did receive a call, and what my thoughts were, I think there's a group going around getting signatures put together to have a special election as far as a Board of Selectmen member is concerned. I'm not 100% sure, but I have heard that.
But it's interesting because you're absolutely right. Even if the charter is silent on that, and there's a process right now, you certainly can weigh in on things like that to say, gee, do we need to put something in there for when this happens in the future?
And it's going to be a very interesting discussion, because if I was a business owner going before either the planning board, and that's why you have an alternate planning board member.
Same thing.
Same
right?
thing.
It's money.
Yes. So
It's tax dollars.
It's tax dollars. So you're making a presentation to a Board of Selectmen or a planning board member, and they have to make the decision. Do they want to continue with that possible application? Because you couldn't come out with a 2-to-2 vote, and you have councilmen that you're paying, councilors, and all the work and money that's spent through that process that may be null and void with a 2-to-2 vote. So it does affect the situation in the business community and others as far as only having 4 potential members that can vote. And what if you had a selectman who happens to recuse himself from a certain issue because it may affect him or her in any case, and you're down to 3. So, interesting discussion to have.
Craig, I know at the meeting afterwards, I think you were talking to the rabbi.
I was.
I don't know if you're aware of his issue and his concern.
Yeah, there was, he brought it, I forgot his name.
Rabbi Silverman.
Rabbi Silverman approached me after the meeting and mentioned that Springtown meeting falls on a Jewish holiday. So he had hoped that we might address when the Springtown meeting occurs, and that we might incorporate some language that gives leeway to when we set that date, and maybe say, avoid any major religious holidays, and then we'd have to define the religious holidays and all of that. But that's so far the only issue I've had brought before me. The mayoral issue has come up a couple of times when I tell people I'm on the committee, because there's still memories of the previous commission where there was the move to completely change the mode of government. But I'm anxious to hear what the public brings before the committee.
And that's really, though, how it's going to happen. It's going to be a combination of, people coming before the committee, but also each of you out in the community. In the example we just gave, where the rabbi spoke to you directly after the meeting about his request for a charter change, and he's spoken to me about the fact that the Board of Selectmen scheduled town meeting, and the charter says the first Saturday in April, which this year happens to be Passover, as well as the day before Easter. As the moderator, I'm not really in any position to decide whether to postpone it. I can make recommendations to town meeting. One recommendation was we convene at 8, and maybe this year we recess at noon, so to give people a chance to prepare for Passover later in the day. But you could come up with a solution that might then apply for every year when Passover occurs, or it's the day before Easter and the day after Good Friday, and whether or not you want to just have language that says that in those years town meeting will either convene and end at noon, or they will not convene until the following Monday. But I mean, these are the kinds of things that as people talk to you, which is why, I've been interested in having all of you get out in the community in various ways, such as this on cable TV, so that people will get to know each of you and hopefully stop you in the street or a restaurant or call you up and give you their opinion. Anita, anybody talk to you yet about any charter issues? Or?
I've had 2 people talk to me about actually the same things, about the mayor position going that way, and the conflict of interest. That's the two areas that so far have been approached.
So Anita, if somebody wanted to contact you, how would they do that?
You can call me.
Okay, and go ahead.
You can call me either at home or on my cell.
And what are those numbers?
My home is 508-747-0706, and my cell is 508-208-6172.
Okay. And Craig, what about you if somebody wanted to contact you?
Yeah, someone, you can call my cell phone at 617-688-0988, or email me at Craig, C-R-A-I-G, Allen, A-L-L-E-N, Sander, S-A-N-D-E-R, @gmail.com.
Good. Tim, how about you?
My cell phone number is 508-962-4009. And any suggestions, anything, you can send an email to tgrandy@comcast.net. tgrandy@comcast.net. I look forward to hearing from you.
Tim, in addition to individuals, boards or committees could also make recommendations or presentations. And I guess I would just ask you, are you aware whether the planning board has any particular concerns or recommendations on a word, a paragraph, a provision?
I will be in contact with the planning board chairman and ask him to bring that up at our next meeting to see if there are anything that the planning board has to be suggested. And maybe the committee may want to bring in the chairman of the planning board at one state during the process to discuss the planning board's aspects and views of the current charter, and if there are any corrections or adjustments that they see that may need to be done.
So Craig, at the first meeting, you also organized yourselves in terms of some leadership of the committee. What were the results of that?
Well, we held our officer elections. We voted Mike Lincoln as our chair, Doug O'Rourke as our vice chair, and Karen Keene as our secretary. It seems like a great leadership. I'm sure that they'll march us into the future strongly. But that was the extent of our business operation.
And there are 3 other members who are not here today, who have been mentioned. Tiffany Cicero, she is the owner and operator of K9 Mercantile Protection, a security company, and very involved in the community, the business community. And also Scott Stevenson, who lives in Plymouth from Eastern Bank. And finally Tom Baratka, who, like you, Craig, is relatively new to the community and lives in the Pine Hills. So we look forward to following your committee at least into the spring, if not into the fall. And Anita, as we wind this up, what would be the last thing that you'd like to say to the people watching and have them remember about you and the Charter Review Committee?
The last thing?
What would you like them to remember from this presentation?
Oh, please call me, or if you see me on the streets, which people always do. I work at the Plymouth Career Center, and so I'm really in the community and very available. So I would really would encourage you, if you have a concern or whatever, to come and talk to any one of us, because this is a really good group, and I think everyone will be very open to suggestions and to hear from people in the community.
Craig, final words.
I would just encourage everybody to read the charter. It's important for not just us to be involved, but everybody to be involved. This is a town government, and it requires every town member to be involved, to read the charter, to bring their concerns to us, and let us know how they want us to proceed with this. I encourage any contact, and if you see me walking around downtown, just grab my coat and say hey.
Charter is online, and also your meetings will be posted. Tim, what would you like people to remember from this?
Please don't call me after 9 o'clock. Please. No, be patient. It's a process, has to be done to vet the charter. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please call any one of the members, or you heard on my email, and the emails and telephone numbers that were mentioned here this evening, and please be involved as much as possible. Give me a call. You see me at BJ shopping. You see me downtown. You see me wearing in Plymouth. If you want to talk, just tap me on the shoulder. No problem sitting down, have a cup of coffee, and talk.
Thanks, Tim Grandy, Craig Allensander, and Anita Rocheteau. Thank you all for being here and for agreeing to serve on the Charter Review Committee. And this completes this edition of Plymouth Profiles. Special thanks to Ken Bukes in the studio. We couldn't do this without him. Please join us for future presentations of Plymouth Profiles. Thank you and good day.